I grew up not knowing who my father was, and today I've helped over 20 families have children myself. I'm a donor-conceived donor, and over the years I've seen things in this space that most people don't even know exist. That's why I got together with the best open donors in the world to build the Open Donor Association. In this video, I want to share my story, what I've learned, and why I believe we need to rethink how we create intentional life. Growing up, it was mostly my mother, my brother, and me. My mom was a professor working full-time, doing everything she could for us, and I will always be grateful to her for that. I'm also grateful to my donor father, because without both of them, I wouldn't be here today talking to you. But for the first 15 years of my life, my donor father was just a description. No face, no real connection. Just a few voice notes, some hobbies, favorite foods, numbers on a paper. And looking back, there was always this quiet feeling like a part of me was missing. Not something I talked about, just something I learned to ignore, because there was nothing I could really explore. The only connection I had were my half-siblings. There was a small forum where the mothers could connect, and every time my mom told me a new half-sibling had joined, I was excited. Who is this person? Do they like me? Do they think like me? Are they also wondering who their father is? But I never knew how many of us were out there, until then one day, everything changed. My mom said, "Your donor signed up to the forum." I was 15 years old, and I remember having tears in my eyes when I first started emailing him, because for the first time in my life, my donor was not just an idea anymore, it was a real person who chose to step forward. Soon after we emailed back and forth, I went to California to meet him. I was nervous and I didn't know what to expect, but it turned into something I will never forget. We went camping in Yosemite. He let me sleep in the camper van while he stayed in the tent. He took me to places I had never seen before, challenged me physically in ways I wasn't used to, and there were moments where I sat on the edge of mountains, places my mother would have never allowed, and he helped me take photos so that it looked even more extreme, just so I could go back home and show them to my friends. After school, my family wanted me to go to university, but my donor invited me to spend a gap year with him in California. So, of course, I chose California. I might have grown up without a father or dad at home, but that didn't make me make bad decisions, right? During that year, my youngest half-sister was born. I saw her the day she came into the world, and I had never seen a human being so young and so small before, and something about that moment stayed with me. My father had a few more half-siblings with his wife, and those half-siblings completely changed how I see family. I realized a strong family is not small. A strong family is large, it's diverse, and it's open. It can be something you consciously and intentionally build. So I knew I wanted my future children to have that too. I wanted them to grow up with connections and not unanswered questions. I wanted them to grow up with the opportunities I was given and not the downsides, right? So I saw how difficult it was for my mother spending all her savings on fertility treatments without knowing what's coming at her, unexpected surprises, and no real support from the fertility industry. So I made a decision. I became an open sperm donor myself. I chose to do it differently, fully open, fully transparent, fully nonprofit from day one, because I want to focus on health and responsibility for great long-term outcomes for the children. As I became more active in the space of open donation, I started noticing things I did not expect, not just on the surface, but behind the scenes. Instead of collaborating, there was a lot of competing, a lot of negativity, not a lot of positivity, people protecting their own position as a donor instead of focusing on what's best for the donor-conceived children and all children, right? I saw a lack of transparency, incomplete information, confusing communication, and when you're making a decision as important as creating a life, I do not think that uncertainty should exist. I saw that not everyone understood how lifestyle affects fertility, like alcohol, hormones, overall health, and I realized being a donor is not just a one-time moment, it's not just a donation, it's about a long-term responsibility. I heard difficult stories from both sides, donors feeling unsupported, exposed to legal risks, recipients having confusing or negative experiences with bad donors. There was no clear system, no consistent standards, and what surprised me the most, there were very few role models, very few people who had both perspectives. As a donor and as someone who was donor conceived, everyone was trying to figure it out on their own. And then there were stories from donor conceived people too. Some who never knew their father, some who felt that something was missing, and that's something I understand because I felt that myself. So it became clear to me. This is not just about donors or recipients, it's about the donor conceived children. And so I realized there had to be a better way than the existing way, a system built on transparency, where donors are open and educated from the beginning, not years later, when it's too late sometimes, where recipients have real understanding and can make informed decisions, and where the well-being of the donor-conceived child comes first. I realized there was no place that brought all of this together, no transparency, no education, and especially not a system that works across countries. So I created the Open Donor Association, a nonprofit platform community focused on ethical, transparent, and responsible open donation. Here, at the ODA, donors are open from the start. Recipients don't just see a profile, they can actually understand the person behind it. Through detailed information, a video, pictures, and real, in-person communication. We don't limit this to one place, we support both national and international connections, so people can find the right match no matter where they are on their journey or on this planet. We also focus on education, helping donors understand their responsibility, helping recipients make informed decisions, and creating a system where people grow instead of figuring out everything alone. Because this is not just a transaction, it's a long-term connection, and that requires a community of donors built on long-term trust and education, not just a marketplace. Since starting this journey, I've personally helped over 20 families have children. And within the wider network, our donors have helped hundreds of families. Some of the donors I work with have dozens of years of experience in the open donor industry. All donors combined have about 100 years of experience in the open donor industry, and we're just getting started. Behind every number is a child, a family, a life that wouldn't exist otherwise. What makes this different is the level of openness, the distances we donors go and make the best we can out of our work. More information, more knowledge, more human connection. Instead of choosing from a limited profile or working with an anonymous donor, people can actually understand who they're working with, and this approach has not gone unnoticed either. We've been featured in international media because people are starting to see this is not just a small shift. It's a new way of thinking about how we create life intentionally. My long-term vision is simple. I'm growing a space where donors can grow, recipients can make confident decisions, and children grow up with no confusion about where they come from. But beyond that, I believe this will impact humanity itself. We are at a point where many people want children, but we don't have the right environment to do so safely. And if we can make this process more transparent, more responsible, and more accessible, then more people can create life, and more children can experience the gift of having a life. I don't want future children to grow up with the same uncertainty the way I did before my donor opened up. So if you're a woman or a couple looking for a donor, you can explore our donor catalog and find someone who aligns with you. If you're a healthy man who wants to make a real impact and do it in a responsible and open way, feel free to apply to the Open Donor Association. We are a nonprofit, which means everything we build goes back into improving the system and creating healthy life. We want better outcomes for everyone involved. At the end of the day, this is about the most important thing we can do as humans. This is about creating life and building a stronger and larger family.